The dawn crept softly over Saint-Tropez, dissolving the last traces of night with strokes of rose and pearl. In the half-light, Colette sat at her window, her pen motionless above a blank page. Below her, the garden stirred, the slow rustle of olive leaves, the fragile tremor of the fig tree branches, and beyond them, the whisper of the sea, a living breath she had come to recognize as her own. Her hair, now streaked with silver, gleamed like pale smoke in the morning light. She was 50 and alone, not lonely, but surrounded by the quiet company of the earth, the sun, and the animals who understood her without speech. On the veranda slept her cats, their bodies stretched in the luxurious confidence of those who trust the day. In the corner of the garden, her mother's portrait rested, a faded photograph framed in wood that smelled faintly of salt. It was to Sido, her mother, that she often spoke in the mornings, her voice tender and wry, as though the distance between the living and the dead were only the width of a breath. "Sido," she whispered, "I am learning what you always knew, that love fades, and yet life grows fuller when one stops begging it to stay." A warm breeze swept through the room, lifting a curl of her hair. She smiled. "Yes, I can hear you scolding me. I still make mistakes with my heart." The letter she had received the previous evening lay unopened on the table, from Vial, her much younger lover. The paper itself seemed to exhale youth, impatience, heat, the arrogance of desire. She could already imagine his words, those pleading lines that trembled with sincerity and selfishness alike. The world outside grew brighter. The day's birth, quiet but inevitable, touched everything: the stone walls, the green vines, the woman who sat still but awake in every sense. She thought of love, of youth, of her mother's unflinching calm before the cycles of loss and return, and as the light spilled fully into the room, Colette realized that this morning, this breaking of day, was not only of the world around her, but of herself. By mid-morning, the sun had settled its golden weight upon the garden. Colette moved through her rooms barefoot, her robe brushing lightly against her ankles. The house was both sanctuary and mirror. Every corner breathed of her solitude, her work, her memories. The letter still waited on the table, the seal broken now, its words exposed like the petals of a plucked flower. "I cannot bear your absence. You are the morning and the night for me. Why do you hide in that silent place? Come back. Let me see you. I cannot live otherwise." She read the lines without surprise, only with a quiet fatigue that was not unkind. There had been a time when such words could set her trembling, when she mistook passion for meaning. But now she sensed something truer beneath the calm, a love that sought no possession, that belonged more to the rhythm of tides than to the hunger of men. Still, Vial's image intruded upon her peace. His youth, that bright, eager cruelty, stirred her both tenderly and with dread. He was like the garden at noon, demanding to be seen, burning itself toward exhaustion. She went outside. The scent of rosemary and the hum of bees gathered around her. She watched a lizard dart across the sunlit stones. Alive, necessary, careless. Her thoughts turned again to Sido. Her mother's memory hovered over every decision, a silent guardian of simplicity. "Work," Sido would have said. "Cultivate your garden, not your regrets." In the distance, the postman's figure approached. Another letter, perhaps. Colette sighed. How swiftly the living pursued what should be left to ripen in silence. Later, she sat by the fountain, her feet bare in the cool water. The world was both vast and intimate, an orchestra of insects, leaves, and light. She thought of how her mother had spoken of men as visitors to the house of life, and now, perhaps, she finally understood. The day's brightness wrapped her in its endless patience. She closed her eyes and listened to the hum of existence, a sound far more constant than love's restless song. Evening descended in waves of orange and violet. The air trembled with heat, and the scent of jasmine thickened around the garden walls. Colette sat on the terrace, a glass of wine untouched beside her, the opened letter lying across her knees. Vial had arrived. He stood before her now, sunburned, defiant, his eyes burning with the same intensity she had once admired. "You didn't answer me," he said, "so I came." She looked at him, this young, beautiful man who carried the impatience of untested summers. "You shouldn't have," she said softly. "You came to find something I no longer have." He laughed, but the sound faltered. "You talk like an old woman. You think too much of age. What does it matter? You are you." She rose slowly, her movements graceful and measured. "You speak as if I am a reflection in your mirror, but I am not yours to keep polished." The cicadas fell silent, as if the garden itself were listening. He reached for her hand, but she stepped back. "Vial, my dear, I have loved you, perhaps even now I do, but what I love in you is what you cannot yet love in me, the calm after the storm, the soil after the rain." He stared at her, his lips parted, his youth raw and wounded. "You don't need anyone, do you?" Her smile was sad, radiant. "No, my love, I need everything, the wind, the cats, the scent of time, the changing light, but not what consumes and leaves ashes." For a moment, he seemed about to speak, but the words died. He turned, walked toward the gate, and was gone. She sank into her chair, the weight of silence immense and beautiful. Above, the first stars flickered, timid yet infinite. She whispered to the night, "Sido, I understand. Love is not an arrival. It is the moment one finally learns to stay." The day had broken, truly now, not as light upon the sea, but as clarity within the soul. The following days passed in a gentle stillness. The sea shimmered with its old, indifferent rhythm. Colette rose early, tended her flowers, wrote at her desk, and let the hours unfold without resistance. Vial had left a note, short, impulsive, unfinished, a remnant of youth that felt already remote, like a dream fading at dawn. She read it once and placed it in a drawer among the seashells and faded ribbons of past lives. Her solitude deepened, but it was no longer the solitude of loss. It was an embrace, vast, breathing, complete. She found herself watching everything with a new tenderness, the ants carrying crumbs along the terrace, the way sunlight lingered on the skin of fruit, the cats stretching into sleep. In her letters to friends, she wrote not of sorrow, but of serenity. She said, "There is a joy that belongs to those who have ceased to seek joy. It is the quiet pulse of being alive, nothing more and nothing less." Each evening she would sit facing the horizon, the world turning gold, and imagine Sido beside her. Sometimes she heard her mother's voice in the rustle of leaves, teasing, wise, mercilessly truthful. "You've stopped running, child. Now you may live," the wind seemed to whisper. The body, once an instrument of desire, had become instead a vessel of perception. The smallest things were enough: the roughness of bark, the cool breath of dawn, the taste of salt in the air. When memories of Vial surfaced, they no longer wounded. They shimmered like distant music, once sweet, now softened by the distance of truth. Colette understood at last that the greatest love was not for a man, nor for the idea of youth, but for the endless act of living itself, the morning that rises no matter how many nights have passed. The break of day came quietly. No triumph, no revelation, only the tender unfolding of light across her room. Colette awoke before the cats, before the wind. She dressed simply, stepping into the garden barefoot. The earth was cool, fragrant with dew. The seas stretched before her, eternal and new. Everything breathed. The fig tree's branches quivered with young fruit. A bird trilled once as if announcing not the day, but the fact of being. She felt her mother's presence more vividly than ever, not as a ghost, but as the calm that had finally entered her bones. Sido, you were right. To live is to let go of what was never ours, even the ache of love. The years behind her shimmered like water, each one distinct yet inseparable. Her body, marked by time, no longer seemed to her a limit, but a landscape, rich, complex, alive. She thought of Vial somewhere far away, chasing his next dawn. She wished him light, and then she forgot him, gently, without pain. At her desk, she began to write. The words came easily, flowing with the rhythm of the waves. They were not of love lost or youth remembered, but of mornings, endless, merciful, faithful mornings. The sun lifted higher, spilling gold through the open shutters. The cats stretched, their fur glinting like liquid amber. The air itself seemed to purr. She laid down her pen and smiled. There was no need to seek, to chase, to prove. The day had already begun, and she was within it, not as witness, but as part of its breath. Outside, the light shimmered on the horizon, the eternal promise of renewal. The break of day, not an ending, not a beginning, but the quiet truth of being alive.